Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Winthrop Town Council meeting for August 12th, 2025. It's Tuesday night at 6:30, and we are in the Harvey hearing room. This meeting is on Zoom. The meeting ID is 816-756-32234. Passcode is 346280, and the phone number is 646-931-3860. Please stand for the pledge. Led by Councilor Swope.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes from the July 22nd meeting have been circulated. Is there a motion to approve?
Approve.
Motion by Councilor Swope, second by Councilor Tassinari. Any discussion, amendments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And let's do a roll call too this evening.
Council Aiello.
Yep.
Council DeMarco.
Here.
Council Costigan.
Here.
Council Tassinari.
Here.
Council Swope.
Here.
Council DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here. All right. Let's move on to general information recommendations. We are extremely fortunate tonight to have the Winthrop Explorers here. And the Winthrop Police Department, the Explorer Post, it's a co-curricular organization. It's sponsored, organized, chartered, and administered by the Winthrop Police Department and Learning for Life. It's been established to provide young adults who have an interest in law enforcement a program that gives an opportunity to learn about a possible career in law enforcement. Explorers also open a potential doorway to future endeavors in the FBI, CIA, and other organizations. The program provides unique classroom and hands-on training in law enforcement. They had an event this year, the 2025 National Public Safety Cadet Competition in Ontario, California, a few months back. We were fortunate enough to send Deputy Chief Rogers, along with Lieutenant Crisafi, out there, along with these 6 wonderful cadets. We are very proud of them for their accomplishments. We know that Adriana, Joshua, and James finished 3rd in human trafficking response. 48 teams competed in the event, and many are from large communities with large budgets, which makes this accomplishment all that much more amazing. We're so proud of all of you. And I would like to say Deputy Chief Rogers has been leading the Winthrop Explorers for the past 30 years. And with Lieutenant Crisafi, they do an incredible job. They compete nationally, and they win. These kids have been able to travel across America, have had incredible opportunities. And as a public service announcement, I encourage you to reach out to Lieutenant Crisafi or Deputy Chief Rogers if you have or are a 14 to 21-year-old youth who would like to get involved in this incredibly tremendous organization. So I thank them for what they've done. So thank you both. We have citations here for each one of you. We would like you to come up when we call your name. You could start from there. You could thank each counselor. Each counselor would actually like to thank you. And we will take a picture after. So I'll read one of, just pick one and read one. This is for Dak Saban, the town council, and the citizens of Winthrop would like to thank you for your service to our community as a Winthrop Police Explorer, and for your competing in the 2025 National Public Safety Cadet Competition in Ontario, California. We wish you nothing but the best in all your future endeavors, given this 12th day of August, 2025, at Winthrop, Massachusetts. Jim Lettieri, Town Council President, Council members, Vice President Hannah Belcher, Pat Costigan, Suzanne Swope, Joseph Aiello, John DeRoss, Max Tassinari, and Robert DeMarco. So thank you again. I'd like to call up first Captain Adriana Rosati.
Congratulations.
Joshua Johnson McGee. Thank you. Dax, save it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Matthew Nowak. Thank you.
Great job.
James Morrissey.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Charles Stockbridge. Congratulations. One round of applause for the. Stand in front of the council, and we'll have a picture taken from. Stand right front, we'll just kind of fill in if we can. And, where's she?
One of them, all of them.
Stand on the table.
That was a great save, Steve. Yeah, we already stayed in there.
Mary and Steve, you guys should get in.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jump on the front.
Okay.
Everybody smile.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job on the mug. That's awesome.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Mary.
Good job, guys. You're more than welcome to stay for the whole meeting if you'd like.
Hockey team in here.
What do we do now?
All right, now we have a presentation by RKG. Eric, please come up. Eric Overson. Eric and his firm was tasked to do a presentation for us here tonight based on a number of factors. I'm sure we'll have some questions. Please understand what the mission was and that RKG completed that mission for us. There were questions we all have on a lot of items that wasn't part of the presentation or part of the request from the town. But I thank Eric for taking his time. Remember, he's our guest, and we're happy to have you here. So the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Mr. President. Hi, council members. Nice to see all of you again. We were asked by Tony and folks in the town staff to take a look at the potential fiscal impacts to the town of Winthrop from new residential development that may or may not materialize in the future. Interestingly enough, not surprising, spurred on by the MBTA communities conversation. We actually have been asked to do this in quite a number of communities around of the 177 communities that were affected by the law. So when this request came up, it wasn't something new. We'd sort of been working on this for other communities, so happy to do it here in Winthrop and hopefully just shed some light on the potential both positive impacts from a revenue standpoint that new multifamily housing can bring to the town. But of course, we know that also comes with town costs. You have to provide services to new residents, just like you would for employees of a new business that might open in town. And there's also school impacts that can come with new residential development. So part of our task was effectively to say, what might the new property tax revenues be from new multifamily development compared to the town costs as well as the school costs. So I think you all received the summary report from Tony, hopefully had a chance to take a look at that. So I'll just run through that. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but happy to answer any questions, however you'd like to do it, either along the way or at the end. So next slide, please. Actually, next slide. So just starting here, in terms of the way, so we build a model that we built for Winthrop and other communities, and our goal is to try to make the information that feeds that model as local as possible. Otherwise, if it's generic and it can apply to any community, it's not really useful to you as a tool going forward for measuring fiscal impact. So what we always do is, working in this case with the town manager and also the superintendent of schools, we take a look at the town budget and the school budget, and we ask for the detailed line item budgets, department by department, line item by line item. And the way that we approach it is what's known as an incremental approach. An incremental cost approach, which is we look at all those different line items across the departments and we identify which costs do we think might actually increase or be affected by new development, in this case residential development, new housing units, new residents to the town, and which ones do we think might not go up with the addition of a new resident or new household. Given that the police officers are here tonight, that would be a good example that I like to use, which would be, in my opinion and experience, it would be unlikely that Winthrop would hire a new police chief or deputy police chief if someone built new housing in town. But you would definitely see impacts from call volume, additional responses to calls, wear and tear on vehicles, fuel for those vehicles, those kinds of things. So as we're going through, say, the police department's line item budget, we're identifying your police officers who are out in the community responding to calls. That would be an incremental cost. We would anticipate there might be some more calls, so we take that into account. Same with all those other items. But for the police chief, we would leave that as what we call a fixed cost. So his or her salary would sort of remain as a fixed cost. So we go through the whole line item budget for town and schools, and we do that same thing. And so that's some of the multipliers that go into our model. We also look at local assessed valuation estimates. So how much might new residential development generate in terms of property taxes? So we work with the assessor to come up with reasonable assessed values for that over time. We also use your local tax rates, of course. And so we really try to hone the model in to be Winthrop specific. At the end of the day, in this case, since there wasn't a set development proposal in front of us, often we're asked to do this for communities when they're looking at an actual development from a developer. In this case, we ran two hypothetical scenarios that you saw. One just being sort of, if you looked at it on a per 100 unit basis, just as a number, and then if you were to measure the full impact of a potential MBTA community. I know we sort of did this analysis a little while ago. So that's essentially how we do it. If we go to the next slide, I'll just walk through some of the metrics that are in the model and in the report. Great. So this kind of goes over a lot of the stuff I just went through. As we look across the town's budget, we break the budget into categories that we know from experience communities often want to see. So you'll see police, fire, public works, library, council on aging, schools. Those are sort of individual departments that I know a lot of communities we work in want to see. The line item for general government is essentially everything else. So that's the town manager's department, the assessor, the finance department, the town clerk. We sort of lump those into a general government category because a lot of times those costs don't really change all that much. A lot of the impact is really on the other departments that we break out. And then in other, that's kind of a catch-all for a lot of other different types of costs that towns have in their budget. So that is employee health care, it is disability insurance, it's property insurance, it's retirement benefits, it's capital costs and debt service. So that kind of goes into an other because it doesn't fit neatly often into one specific department. And for our models, we take the healthcare insurance as an incremental cost because if you do have to hire new employees, we know that is a major cost to municipalities and one that continues to go up over time, and same with the disability costs. With our model, the way we've written the scope, we don't account for capital costs or debt costs or retirement. We assume that those costs have already been borne by existing residents. Those employees are already retired. Those capital projects, at least at the time of our analysis, are sort of in the works through your CIP or are being funded, same with debt service. So those are the key things. The other key thing I wanted to mention is on the school side, the student generation rates. So there's kind of two things that drive the school cost side. You have the sort of cost to educate a student, which is derived from the budget. But then we also have to figure out a way to measure, well, if we have, let's say, 100 new units, how many students are likely to be generated by that 100 new units? The way we do it when we can, and fortunately in Winthrop we're able to do it this way, since we're measuring multifamily housing, the impact of multifamily housing with this model, we worked closely with the town manager and the superintendent to actually identify, I think it was 9 different multifamily developments of varying sizes that are here in Winthrop today, and just asked the school department, no personal information or anything, it's just the number of students that live in that complex. Therefore, we can take the number of units in that complex and divide it by the number of students and actually come up with a per unit ratio. So then we have the cost to educate and we have the potential number of students that could be generated by the new housing. Getting it from a local source like the school district we find is usually the best way to do it. There are sort of studies that have been done generally both in Massachusetts as well as nationally, but they tend to blend housing typologies. So you might see something at the statewide level that might be much higher. It might be, we use I think 0.19, it's coming up here if that's not the number, but you might see numbers much higher, but that's because single family tends to generate far more children than multifamily development, and that's something that's been studied both here in the States and nationally. So we really do try to pinpoint those student generation rates to local numbers as best we can. Next slide, please. This is just our approach for developing the assessed values. In this case, our model takes into account both rental product as well as for sale product. So if you were interested, you can see sort of how we're valuing the different units, and we also can account for affordability as well if you have an affordability component to a development. We've done that in the model as well. And these are all tied to Winthrop's market in terms of the rents that we used and the most recent sale prices we can find. Next slide, please. So once we parse out the budget between which costs across the departments are fixed and which ones are incremental, we sort of create this summary table. So you can see for all the departments, the total budgets that we use, the total budget for the town at the bottom. Of course, this is just your general fund budget. I should have mentioned it doesn't include state aid or grants or anything like that, because we're really concerned about what's generated by the property taxes. And then you can see the monetary amount of what we consider to be incremental, and then just the percentage of incremental over total is the percentage on the far right column. So you can see that it really varies under general government, where we assume there's not a ton of incremental change, particularly from personnel, which is often your highest cost. And then when you look at police and fire, you can see we're taking 70 to almost 80% of their budget, because much of their budget is your sort of what I call your line item officers and your line item firefighters and EMS. And we take those as incremental because we do know call volume will likely change over time. So that's why you see there's such a much higher percentage for police and fire. And as I mentioned before, the 27% reflects the benefit cost. So overall, we're taking about 37% of Winthrop's general fund budget as incremental. The next step that we take once we figure out the incremental budget is we have to parse it to figure out, well, what costs that the town bears are related to residential versus other types of property in town, commercial, industrial, etc. The way we do that is just based on the total assessed value that's attributed to residential versus other uses. This way we can just pinpoint, in this case, because we're only measuring residential, the percentage of that incremental budget that we would consider to be residential. Next slide, please. Once we have the incremental budget parsed out to residential, we need to figure out how do we get that budget to a per household measure, so that if we say we're measuring 100 new households, we need an amount to be able to put against that. So we divide that incremental budget by the number of total occupied housing units in Winthrop today, and that essentially gives us today's quote-unquote costs on a per household basis. So you can see then how that incremental budget in the table on the bottom right breaks out across each of the categories we talked about. Once you divide that by the total households, you essentially get the cost per unit. So the total at the bottom, we estimate each new household to cost the town of Winthrop, just from town services, not schools, just a little over $1,000 on an annualized basis. Next slide, please. This one will go a little quicker because I think I've sort of gone over this already, but we do the exact same analysis for schools. So you can see the 0.19 ratio that we've applied across 1, 2, and 3 beds, and also condo and townhouses. We weren't able to get a breakdown of students by bedroom type, so we're just using in this case an average. What we do find is studios and 1s tend to be extremely low. 2's a little bit higher, 3's a little bit higher. That's usually how it ramps up. But just because we couldn't get localized data at that level of specificity for Winthrop, we're just using a blended rate across those categories. And then you can see for this school budget, total budget from the data from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for FY24 was a little over 26 million. As we went through those line items, we ended up taking 70% of that as incremental. That's pretty typical. Usually we're somewhere between 65 and 75% usually, so we're kind of right in the middle here. So the total cost when we divide the budget by total enrollment for that year, it's about 19,172 all-in cost, so we're at about 13,422 to educate a pupil based on the incremental approach. Next slide, please. And so now we'll just look at the 2 hypothetical cases that we ran through the model. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we looked at multifamily apartments, so in that case rental, as well as for sale condominiums. Scenario 1 just looks at 100 rentals. Scenario 2, 100 for sale condos. And then if we looked at the total potential impact from MBTA communities and the 890 units, we looked at that as all apartment rentals and same all as condos. So that's what you'll see in the following summary slides. Next slide, please. Thanks. So here, this is just the comparison of the 100 multifamily rental units to the condos. You can see if you look sort of top to bottom on the table, you'll see an estimate at the top of the property taxes, and you'll see they're different because there's different assessed values associated with rental versus condos. The sale prices in Winthrop are higher than what can be generated on a per unit basis for rentals. We don't have any commercial, so that's 0. We don't have any rooms tax. That's if we wanted to measure hotels. All this is built into our model, but we're just running it for residential. We also just estimate motor vehicle excise taxes, just based on the information that we can get from the Department of Revenue for sort of an average per household in Winthrop today, and we just compare that to, or we project that against the households, in this case the 100 households, because that would be net new revenue coming to the town. So you can see net new annual municipal revenues on the rental side, 413,000. Then we subtract the costs, so cost of municipal services a little over 100,000, and then projected school costs about 241,000. We subtract that from the revenue, and we come to a net surplus or a positive net fiscal impact of almost $72,000 on an annual basis. This again assumes it's a point-in-time analysis based on the information that we have. We do realize that budgets fluctuate. I don't have to tell any of you that budgets fluctuate on an annual basis. Assessed values fluctuate annually. The tax rate often fluctuates annually. Our model is built in a way that we can test assumptions like that. It's just changing a number. So if there was a desire to do that, that is possible and very quick. But this was our analysis of sort of where things stand in the current fiscal year. And then you can see how it varies for the 100 condo units. And again, we have the higher number in terms of the net surplus, mostly because of the valuations. And if we just look at the next slide, which I think is my last one, just on the 890 units, obviously the numbers in all cases are much larger. We're measuring over 8 times the amount of housing under this scenario. So in this case, on an annual basis, the net surplus for rental could be around 736,000. Under the condo scenario, about 2.5 million. And again, this assumes that all 890 units are fully built out and are occupied at current occupancy levels in the town. I realize that under an 890 unit scenario could potentially take many years to build out, so. But we didn't phase this model, we just wanted to do a point in time comparison. I think that might be the last.
Well, we thank you for your presentation, and you had a task, you completed the task, and you did a good job with the numbers. And I have a few questions, and I'll pass it on and let everybody. And obviously, you talked about you didn't really get into capital plans and budget. I mean, you don't know how close we are to capacity in schools and what would tip the scale and this and that. And you also mentioned how, single-family homes are going to tend to generate more children, right? And I do think Winthrop's, we all think Winthrop's unique in a lot of ways, but I think Winthrop's unique in a couple of ways when it comes to new growth, especially, an apartment building or multifamily, more apartment types or condominium types that, like Sail Harbor, right, where we have maybe 3 students, 2 or 3 or 4 kids in Winthrop public school systems that live in Sail Harbor in all those units. However, I think there's 30 to 40% of the units were bought by Winthrop residents that love Winthrop because it's unique and wanted to stay here as they age. Sell the units, sell their homes, buy the units, sell their homes, which brings in a multitude of children. So, and it's hard to, how do you really try to come to grips with that? So, I appreciate all the work you did, and it's kind of like a plug-and-play system, right? Basically, you're saying if you created 70 units or 80 units, you could kind of plug and play. And on the school's budget, now you got that from 2025 from DESE?
We did, yeah. We had talked, originally we were trying to get the school budget, it didn't come in time for me to finish up, but Tony and I did have a meeting with the school superintendent, we finessed a couple of the numbers, and she seemed pretty comfortable with where it landed.
The school budget for 2026 is 42 million, I think. Now, some of that is fixed cost that has to be extrapolated out,
Right.
but, and again, that's just, it's the information you're putting in, right? It's the information you're given. But I'll take a few minutes. I'll start down there with Councilor Aiello if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thanks again. Nice seeing you again. So let's set aside 3A for a second, right? That's been decided and that's not happening.
Yep.
The reality is, you went through the study with us, is that previous town councils have rezoned certain sections of the town that have not yet been built out. And I think, depends how you count, most of them are, you get 4 levels and it's housing, et cetera. But we don't get down to unit formation. And so there's a big difference if we're looking at a whole bunch of areas where if we built a bunch of 1-bedroom units or studio apartments, we'd have a lot less generation of students, which is a big driver of costs. And if we were to build a bunch of 3-bedroom units, as we're following through over the years, unless this stuff goes through the planning board, there'll be a much more significant impact on schools, including the lumpy stuff of worrying about where does our current capacity of schools sort of force us to get into a big capital expansion. And I'm not proposing that we should make policy decisions about future growth based upon cost and be anti-family or pro-family or whatever. But are there techniques that other communities have used when they look at this conundrum, which is more 3-bedroom units probably result in less financial surplus, and more 1-bedroom units give us more economic surplus? How they manage what ends up being built at the end of the day? What is it? Are there a set of techniques that we should be aware of to help guide the growth that's coming at us anyway?
Yeah, great question. One that I know many municipalities grapple with. When it comes to housing and sort of regulating bedroom size, you have to be really, really careful because you can run into fair housing law. So I know in some communities, like a popular thing in zoning years ago, decades ago, used to be to either regulate the size of a bedroom or regulate the percentages of bedrooms that could be applied. I think that's largely been deemed illegal in terms of fair housing law, so you just have to be really careful what you do there. For our model, we look at the market, the sort of market that Winthrop sits within, as well as development that's happened recently in Winthrop. And we do have a bedroom breakout by percentage, so
Yeah,
let's say it was
saw that.
100 units, we would use a certain percentage of assumption for studios. And usually it's like a 10% studio, 10% threes, and then the rest kind of spread out, 45, 35, or whatever the numbers are in the middle. Those are kind of ratios that a lot of developers use. And also, that would help you account for it if you happen to have a 40B or a community happen to have a 40B. There's a requirement under 40B to have 10% of the units as 3 bedrooms, so we try to account for, that anomaly if that happens to occur in the community. But generally, I would say try to steer away from sort of regulating unit size and bedroom size if you can.
It's really market-driven at the end of the day.
It really is,
Okay.
yeah. And developers are gonna kind of make decisions based on the market.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DeMarco.
Thank you for the presentation, and I really appreciate the fact that you broke it out with the 800 units versus the MBTA mandated 800-plus units. And it was very much in depth, like seeing the numbers and actually going through it. The only thing I have when it comes to the 800-plus MBT zoning, what challenges did you come across when trying to accurately estimate when this, like, for example, when, sorry, I'm fumbling over my words, when you don't know how many bedrooms they can have and how many children they can have in the house, because there's no limit. So how do you estimate how many people are gonna be in a unit when you can't accurately determine how many bedrooms there's gonna be and how many people are gonna be?
Yeah, so in terms of the bedrooms, as I was saying, Councilor Ayala, we come up with an assumption in the model about how many different size units are gonna be in a given development. So in the case of the 890, if we said 10% per studio, so we've got 89 studios, 89 3 bedrooms, and then the rest are spread between 1 and 2s. The model it's agnostic on number of people per unit. Under the assumption, we would just assume that it's an average number based on whatever Winthrop's average is, but our whole model is built on a per unit basis and cost per unit.
Okay.
So it's sort of agnostic of the number of people living in the unit.
Okay.
I understand if there were overcrowding issues or something like that, costs could potentially go up, but we're trying to assume that this development would act like other developments that are here in town today,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Costigan.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, appreciate it. Just some concerns I have over this. I mean, everything's based upon projections, I understand that. The increase in students, I mean, we're looking at .19. I think the average, in accordance to the National Association of Home Builders, is a .41. And on top of that, I think just, the numbers speak for themselves as far as numbers are concerned, but is that to say that there will be no more police staff hired as a result of increased populace in this town, let alone the new fire station? I mean, is this all based upon the current staffing levels we have right now? And this is without hiring any more town staff as well for the increased housing? Was that taken into consideration, I should say?
Yeah, so the way that we look at it, the reason that we do the incremental based model, so police and fire, I think, is a great example for your question, I hope. The reason why we make sure that we account for the current costs of police and we build that in as an incremental cost against new development is we do assume that in the future there may be the potential that you might have to hire, a new police officer or, bring a new cruiser on or have a new firefighter on because call volume could potentially go up. It's kind of interesting we've done this in a lot of communities, and I've had a lot of conversations with fire chiefs and police chiefs around the Commonwealth, and I always ask them the same question. And I always say, because this question always comes up and I think it's a really good one. I always say, is there some measurement that you use internally that says if my call volume goes up by 100 calls or 10% or whatever the number is, I know I need to hire a new person. And the answer that I've always got, maybe in Winthrop it's different, I don't know, I'd love to ask the question. But the answer I always get is no, it's not like a numerical trigger, it's more like, we're being pushed. Overtime is going up, our call volume's going up, our cars are spending more time on the road, so I'm going to come to town council or city council or town meeting for a budgetary request to increase that, maybe they'll give it to me, maybe they won't. That's kind of been the response, because I'd actually love to get to a point where someone says, yeah, no, 100 new calls, that's gonna always trigger, you know, a new half-time or a new full-time officer. So that's the best I could give you on that question.
Well, let me follow that up by saying, were these meetings held amongst the department chiefs as well as regards to the study? Was their input, fire chief, police chief, so forth, so on? Were they involved with these studies as well?
With our scope, we didn't get to that.
You didn't get that far, okay. And I'll just jump to another issue I'm thinking about. We have a brand-new fire station coming on board. We have increased housing. It's going to happen one way or another. We have buildings that are going to be elevated in height. We'd be talking about apparatus, potential additional firefighters. If there is a need to fight fires with this increased population and infrastructure, let alone, we're talking about the schools. I mean, you know, what is the capacity, what's the breaking point of our school system, let alone having to possibly build more classrooms? I mean, I'd like to say that I enjoyed the presentation here, but I found it quite vague as it relates to digging down into and drilling down into how these numbers were formulated. I think there's a lot, and again, maybe I'm wrong, I think there's a lot that we could really discuss here that I think you're going to see is going to add to the expenditures involved with this increase in population and housing. That is my opinion, let alone the safety implications, the stress on the infrastructure. I mean, as we know, we're already dealing with a lot of that right now. Do we have the infrastructure to support this, and what is the cost of bringing that infrastructure up? I don't think I saw that in the report as well. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right, yeah.
And, you know, on top of that, we're talking, you know, the school system, the Northeast Regional High School. Our contribution to that is going to be quite excessive. I don't know if that was taken into consideration as well. Again, these are just concerns of mine. As far as the numbers are concerned, I'd like to see a more in-depth presentation as it relates to specific numbers and a possible low number here and potentially a high number. What is the potential for worst-case scenario here? So I think that would make me more comfortable, and I think maybe the people of Winthrop as well, to know what this building, an increased building in the town, the implications it will have on all of us. Whether you're down in a flood zone or whether you're putting your kids through school, the school numbers 0.19. I think if you looked at the Lexington study, their projections are much, much higher as it relates to elementary schools. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people moving to Lexington with children. Great school system. I'm not saying our Winthrop school system is terrible, it's wonderful. But I'm just saying, I think we're going to see an influx of more students, especially on the elementary level, that is going to increase our expenditures here as well. So again, as I started, I said this is all based upon projections, and I think I have a different way of looking at those projections. But I do appreciate your time this evening, at least, to getting the ball rolling on this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And again, just to reiterate that, you know, there was a certain scope of work which Eric and his firm performed, right? And they've acknowledged, and we've acknowledged that infrastructure, potential capital improvements and stuff like that are not part of the study. Right? But thank you, Councilor and Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. This was really great, and I think it gives us an important tool to pair with the information we know about our increased contribution to the VOC and all these things. But I had two questions. One, Councilor Costigan kind of touched on, and is there anything built into this model that accounts for the added tax on infrastructure, like tax being, like usage? Like, we see it in our capital plan, we're projecting out how quickly we need to replace roads and sidewalks and pipes, but presumably with additional residents, that rate would increase. Does that come into account on this, or is capital totally left off?
Yeah, capital
Okay.
wouldn't be part of that. It-
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think some of it too also depends on like the location of the development too, which we didn't, right, it was sort of a hypothetical. I'll probably regret bringing this up, but for the old MBTA, the former MBTA community's proposal, we had sort of looked at two already developed areas, right, that already had housing on them and were served by infrastructure that in theory serves the number of
Right.
units there. And under that redevelopment scenario, at least as it stood at that time, from our analysis, it would have actually resulted in slightly, that new zoning would have produced slightly fewer units. So if you like work just under that assumption, you'd probably have enough capacity already to serve because the housing's
Sure.
already there. Now, if it was a brand new development somewhere where you didn't have that infrastructure, then I think these questions make a ton of sense.
Thank you. And then my other question was, looking at the budgets you looked at line by line, I didn't see inspectional services listed there, and I would imagine they're highly impacted by increased density. Have you seen in other communities that like they're kind of not money-making, but in that they collect fines and stuff? How does that interplay with additional?
Yeah, great question. So they would be in the general government
Okay.
line item, so they're definitely in there. I guess in conversations I've had in other communities too, is the building permit fees, we often assume that they're set at a rate that helps offset either in full or partially in that cost. We've also seen in other communities, if the project is very substantial in size, sometimes the communities will ask the developers to actually bring in an outside inspector if they either need help just from a sheer volume standpoint or areas of expertise if the community doesn't happen to have that. So I think there are ways too to sort of offset some of those costs.
Great. And then just one more quick question, and this could have been my misunderstanding, but those dollar amounts of the increased net positive surplus of cash, those numbers, is that just initially as new growth, or is that year over year in tax revenue?
Yeah, it would come in initially as new growth, but then year over year, it would be there. It's on an annual basis, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, Council Vice President. And again, just talking on infrastructure again, and we zoned an area of town called the Center Business District, right? Where upwards of potentially 450, 500 units if it's fully built out. And we did an infrastructure project there that ended up costing us $14 million. Now, some of that is just, we have aging infrastructure, right? We had to increase the capacity and such, but the big component of that was to be able to have these increased units, right? Councilor Tessner.
Thank you, Council President. Eric, thank you very much for this presentation. I thought it was really well thought out. The incremental cost approach was really interesting to read about in the materials that we got a little while ago. It's just really well thought out. I just want to make sure we're all speaking the same language here, because this fiscal impact analysis was requested because not having anything to do with MBTA Communities Act compliance, which was a net zero plan put forward by the planning board, and not accounting for any ADUs either. This is a concern about real possible capacity that can be built out as zoned by previous councils. So I just want to level set that for everybody who's here and who's watching at home. This has nothing to do with the MBTA Communities Act. It has nothing to do with, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use this to really estimate how ADUs are going to behave, because we have no real example on how ADUs play out. But I do have a question about capital costs. So we spent a lot of time talking about infrastructure the last few minutes, and it would seem to me that capital costs are going to be what they are today, regardless of whether we add 100 or that full 700-800 number that is already listed as capacity. And the reason is because adding units, you're going to answer whether you agree or not, but adding units doesn't change the amount of stormwater that needs to go through the stormwater drainage system. It doesn't really effectively change what's going through the utilities that we own, which are the water mains and the sewer lines. And if those increases were to happen, right, that would be part of the cost that the developer incurs to upgrade their systems, how they feed into the main lines. Now, is that what you typically see?
So, I guess a couple things. I think from the infrastructure capacity standpoint, I would say it just depends on what piece of infrastructure you're talking about. So I would say for a road, if somebody built 100 new units, like, yes, there's a little bit of wear and tear, that's extra, but probably not a whole lot more than what's already there, unless it's a private way or something. Water and sewer, I would say, you know, if today there's a auto body repair shop and tomorrow there's 150 units, they are going to be, you know, generating additional, you know, certainly sewer into the system. You know, through a development agreement, depending on how you all handle it, you could talk about those kinds of upgrades with the developer. I think that's certainly things that happen in other communities. So I would say there's, you know, there would be some level of impact to infrastructure, depending on what's there under current situation and what could be there in the future. Stormwater, that was the other thing. We worked in a community where this came up as well. And again, I would say it depends what's there today versus what could be there in the future. So let's say there's a large impervious parking lot there and it's getting redeveloped into something else. That actually could have a beneficial impact from a stormwater perspective, because you're going from essentially 100% impervious surface, right? That's putting a lot of stormwater runoff right into the system. Whereas there's ways to design sites and to design buildings to capture at least some of that on site. So in some respects, you might actually be able to make the situation better depending on how your stormwater regs or site plan are structured.
One other piece of infrastructure that's desperately needed around here, which I know that I hope to hear a comment about it later, is tide inundation protection, so seawall protection. That doesn't change regardless of whether we build or we don't build. That doesn't change. And in terms of our stormwater drainage, we've heard from Director Callan many times, it's over 100 to 125 years old, where parts of it are clay that are collapsing in on itself and not allowing for outflow. So those are projects that are going to have to be undertaken regardless of whether we build or we don't build. Those are real costs that are in our future, regardless of whether we increase our real estate tax revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
or we don't.
Yeah, if your existing condition is to the point where it needs to be replaced already with current levels of development, then you're right. That's a project that needs to be undertaken anyway, regardless if somebody builds or they don't.
Thank you again.
Sure.
Great presentation.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Swope.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for coming back to see us.
Of course.
I know we give you a hard time every time you come here, so, hey, well.
Good job.
When you did this report, how did you see this report being used in the overall planning of Winthrop?
Yeah, in my early conversations with the town manager, you know, he talked about trying to develop a tool that could be used to evaluate the future development, sort of regardless of where it was or sort of what size and scale it was, but something just to be used as a tool to sort of help educate decision makers as to what the potential impacts might be.
The only reason I get concerned about that is that there are so many other factors that go into a plan like that. For example, insurance. You know, with climate change, we faced, I know at Seal Harbor, we faced an insurance problem already. So I anticipate that our insurance rates will continue to climb, which doesn't really help property values, really, if you can't get them insured, because you couldn't even get a mortgage if you can't get insurance. So we face some very serious concerns, I think, about just rising costs of insurance, which I understand now that that wasn't included. And so that's one. Two, the interesting thing about schools here is that I do think what's going to happen, and actually the council president has talked about this somewhat, that people are moving out of their homes, moving into smaller units so that the town will house hopefully more families, maybe, with kids, so that the single-family homes are now going to have more kids as the older people move out. So I can tell you, sadly, in Seal Harbor, when I say move out, I mean move out. And so there are people that are moving in to Seal Harbor that are young professionals. It's expensive there. So they may start a family there, but they're looking for that single-family home that's good. So I don't think that's what I don't think that's when we built Seal Harbor, that was necessarily what was happening. I think people were looking at Seal Harbor in a kind of different way. So when the council president says there's only, I don't think there are 4 kids. I can't find them. There might be 2 there. But the point is, if you use that as an example of a multifamily, that's not what is happening in Governor's Park. So I think it's a very interesting, I don't know what groups of communities you use for multifamily in Winthrop, but I know that it's kind of a very different segment of the population. So the reason that I mentioned that is because I don't think we should discount the possibility that we would have to build a new school if indeed we build more housing. And that is, as you know, very expensive. So I don't see the elasticity in the report that says, okay, we can go on year 1, we're fine. Year 2, we're fine. Uh-oh, year 5, we need a new school. And it's that discrete time frame that doesn't allow for these incremental things that happen. So, I mean, I don't know, if we don't build anything in year 1, nothing. We build lots in year 2, so that's what I mean. So I don't see that in the report. We've already talked about the capital costs, but I do think it's important to also think about what's happening in our water sewer issue. I mean, I see a lot of apartments in Revere. I think all that water, if I'm right, Councilor Costigan, has to come through to the MBTA. Is that correct?
You mean the MWR?
MWR, yeah.
That's wastewater, yes.
Yeah, so it's also the building around us that may in fact require more capital expenditure than we had ever anticipated. It's not only our own development, it's everything around us. And that has to do with, now we have congestion, now we have roadways, and I'm not sure, I mean, I've taken pictures of our Shirley Street roadway, and I was adamant about the MWRA because, I mean, I don't know if that street was made for all these trucks, but we have a lot of trucks coming. My point is water and sewer is an issue, I think, and I think it's going to be a bigger issue than we might have anticipated. So I think that the plan on the National Association of Home Builders, and I understand they included single families, but I think we'll see more single families actually be renovated to increase the number of students, and that would be a 0.41 versus what Councilor Costigan mentioned versus a 0.19. And I guess one other point. I think your report can be valuable as a piece of what we need to take a look at, but we don't have a planning document, maybe like Arlington or other communities, that bring us together, bring DPW, Planning Board, I mean, ordinance, we don't. And it's a killer. And I'm worried about it. So I don't want people to walk away from your report saying, wow, if we could just build more housing, look at all the money that we could gain. Because it's a slice of the pie, which is an important piece, but it's not the whole picture. And so I ask us to really consider that as we take a look, and thanks you for coming and listening.
Again, yes, no, go.
Thank you, Mr. President. One follow-up question on the capital side that Councilor Swope made me think of was this, is with any added capacity, any new capital projects would be spread out over that added capacity as well, right? Theoretically. Any added units that actually get built out would share in the burden of cost of any new capital projects that were to come about, whether it's a school or it's a wastewater line.
Absolutely, I mean, they would be new taxpayers to the town, so their money would go into the general fund with everybody else's, so yes. Yeah, if you're currently spreading a debt service cost over 1,000 households and tomorrow you're spreading it over 1,100, then yes, technically you'd be spreading that cost and the overall cost on a per person or per household basis would go down, yes.
Thank you. And thank you again, and you know what, we could talk back and forth about the numbers and this and that, but it's a great exercise. It gives us a starting point. It brings up other subjects. It brings up infrastructure, it brings up ADUs and how that affects. Is it the owner of the single family moving into the ADU and renting their house with, so it brings up a lot more to talk about. So, I think Councilor Aiello, I think it was probably, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, asked for this study, and we all have questions, plus and minus, whatever it is, but it's a great document to have, and we can tweak it as we wish. We could put in new school numbers, we could do whatever we want. But thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming out here on this hot night.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gonna remember that.
Good night. Good night, Eric. Thanks.
Good night.
Public comment, first round. Celeste.
Thank you. So I just want to, Doug, so I really appreciated that presentation.
Just name and precinct.
Oh, Celeste Barry Hewitt, precinct 1. Just thought that was a great opportunity to kind of give us some insight into what we could look at if we had additional units coming into town, what the dividends would be, and give us an opportunity to probe at a lot of other questions that might not have been directly addressed. I think it was a great jumping off point, and the unknowns are a real impact, and evolution of development typically yields, in my experience, fewer multi-bedrooms, a lot more single bedrooms, just because it's more profitable for developers to have more units than more bedrooms. Location is a factor in terms of tax on infrastructure and whether or not it's a ground up development or augmenting existing development. It's arguable that converting single families to 2 families is going to be less taxing than brand new multi-units. Kirby Development Project has proposed, the proposal is calling for 42 units and ground up building, so that's arguably going to have a lot more tax on the infrastructure in the immediate area. 50 Somerset has 20 units, 63 Putnam has 16, and there's other existing buildings adding 5+ units in a whack. But somebody brought up a good point about putting the burden on the developer to address infrastructure tax, and maybe there's a way we can kind of identify the tipping point. It's arguable adding 42 units, that's going to cause some kind of a tipping point. I think you guys know that I work in development. I have a project that I'm working on in Salem. It's 3 developments, 45 units. The burden was put on us, even though it was an already developed corridor with existing apartment buildings. Probably over $200,000, almost $300,000 to install gas service to that area because we proposed a tax on that. And that's something that we need to look at when developers are coming in and adding that kind of a burden. Another factor that we're not considering, because we're making a lot of assumptions about how many units are coming in, how many bedrooms they'll have, how many children they'll have, that kind of thing. We're also not factoring in the folks that are aging in place and their children are aging out of the school system. I didn't bring any school-age children to town with me. I had college-age students when I came to town, so you're welcome. I plan to be here for at least another couple of decades, and I think that we will see people in my age bracket and older, there will be that attrition into the school system. So there are a lot of factors, a lot of unknowns, and I think that there's ways that we can lay the cost for major burdens on infrastructure onto the developers, as it should be, and I think it should be done in scale with what they're proposing. If you're talking about people who want to add 1 or 2 units to existing single families because they want to have a place for their elder parents that they're caring for or for their adult children. I think that it has a different burden than someone who wants to install 40-plus units.
Thank you. Yes, Mark.
Mark Senate, Precinct 2. We'll get off the subject of housing. This is public safety. Just this past Sunday, I was at the farmer's market, and these, has anybody addressed these motorized bikes that these kids are flying around this town in gangs of 2, 3, 4, and 5 of these bikes all at once, taking up both lanes of traffic down Walden and other streets, using the back alley behind Cafe Delight as a roundabout for them to race through the sitting area out there. Is public safety aware of this, and is public safety doing anything about it? Is, I guess my question. You know, somebody's gonna die, and somebody's gonna get hit, and God help the motor vehicle that hits them, that person's life is gonna be ruined. There has to be some control of this in this town, because somebody will die.
Really, 5 of them that ran right through French Square, sorry.
Yeah, we were there that day. They were just circling French Square, going down the alley. They're gonna hit somebody, they're gonna hit an elderly person. Again, this is a real issue in town, and it needs to be handled. And it needs to be handled with the parents of these children. Okay? They're helmetless, most of them. 1 or 2 are wearing helmets, but they have no regard for and no respect for anybody.
Thank you. Anything on, yes.
Lee Foley,
Lee?
can you hear us?
Anybody else?
Lee, can you hear us?
We'll come back in a minute. Marcy, did you have a question?
Marcy,
Comment?
Precinct 2. I came here with the intention of taking off my rose-colored glasses and calling out the disrespect and distractions and disruptions and the untruths that have been said about the council members in front of you. Then I read the transcript this week, and I was taken back about a Winthrop resident, Colonel Chuck Kubik, did something so forward-thinking that I wanted to bring it to your attention if you already haven't read it. He was thinking within the Air Force, did something so forward-thinking within the Air Force National Guard. He used AI to coordinate the skills of airmen to the jobs needed in the National Guard outreach programs. It was amazing to me. I got to thinking, here on this board, we have skilled volunteer counselors that come before us, here we go, sorry, that could and should be used, that have life experience, real life experience, education, and job skills that could and should be used for the benefit of this town without special attention to your political views. This is one agenda that I know of that is in need of attention, and that is the safety, financial security, and support of the town management of this 1.6-mile peninsula known as Winthrop. I have been reading the charter, it's a long read, and states that the president of the council has the power and holds the gavel and sets the agenda. You and those that come after you have the opportunity to chart a new course here in this room and put your personal opinions and politics aside and do what's necessary to ensure our town's future. To see the skills sitting at this table and energize and utilize these skills for the betterment of our community. Now is the time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Jack Dowd, Precinct 1. I'm going to go back to the last probably 4 or 5 meetings since the tree on Bowden Street was cut down, and all information has disappeared. I've spoken about 3 or 4 times about this issue and haven't gotten a response. Is there a report of who took the tree down who paid for taking the tree down? What company took the tree down? So we can get to the bottom of this. We don't want any more trees being taken down. And if you don't take care of the problem, that's exactly what's going to happen. It happened 25 years ago. It's happened on different occasions. You know, it's unreported, that trees have been taken down without due notice. When is it going to stop? It won't stop if you neglect to have a written report put out about exactly what happened to that tree on Bowden Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lee?
Lee, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, sorry, I think you have chronic sound problems. I just have...
Just name and precinct, Lee.
Yeah?
Just name and precinct.
Oh, sorry, Lee Foley, Precinct 6. Just three things I want to talk about briefly. One is our standouts on Belle Isle Bridge every Saturday from 10 to 12 to support our immigrant neighbors. I have to say that this has been like one of the highlights of my year, and I just implore all the counselors and residents to come and stand out with us and to get a feel for the temperature and people's attitudes towards immigration and what's happening with ICE. And I want to thank Councilor Swope once again for being the only counselor that's come out. But I can assure you that you will leave there feeling so positive. And it's free endorphins for at least 48 hours after you visit. Just my plug for that and all the wonderful response we've gotten from the people passing by, people walking by, people biking by, driving. The second issue I wanted to just comment on was the voting to change the rules for the council makeup. I am against changing them because I do not feel like it's addressing the core issue of participation and why people don't want to participate. I feel like that being councilor has become more and more difficult due to a hostile environment, and I think that is addressable and able to be improved with some proper dedication and work and focus and commitment and will, basically. And the third thing is 3A, there's still time to comply if we put it to a vote. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
Vasily, can you hear us?
Hey Denise, Vasily Mallier, Precinct 1. I'd like to thank Town Council President Lettieri and Councilor Swope for attending the hearing at the State House 2 weeks ago regarding Representative Turco's 3 bills that would exempt Winthrop from complying with 3A. It would save Winthrop from it. I'd also like to thank Councilor Costigan for writing his written testimony, and I'd like to also thank Councilor Belcher today for emailing and responding that she will also be submitting testimony in support of Representative Turco's bills. I would suggest that, and I would hope that the remaining councilors would support Rep. Turco's bills, as there is no harm. There is no harm to support his bills. I would also ask the community as well to continue to write. Our voices must be heard. We have to be loud about it. This is a great opportunity for us to all come together and unite, and it would actually kind of get rid of some of this hostility that the previous person had spoken about. So I thank you guys for representing us at the State House, and have a good night.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, we'll have a second round later on. Correspondence, Denise?
I did. A letter from Tom Riley, who is opposed to the town council changing composition. And I got a letter from Julia Wallace just saying goodbye and thanking everybody for everybody in Winthrop, helping her for her past few times that she was here and everything she's dealt with in Winthrop. And thanks everybody, and sadly leaves our community. That is it.
Thank you. Committee reports, Firehouse Building Committee met 2 weeks ago, and we'll be meeting again tomorrow night at 5 o'clock in the Harvey Room. And most of this is in the town manager's report, but we introduced the architect, Larry Trim from Kessel and Boos. We talked about the timeline once again. You might not be noticing any action, but there's been assessments of the building, inside assessments in terms of asbestos and any other hazardous waste, hazardous materials. We will be going out within the next 2.5 weeks for an RFQ for asbestos removal along with demolition. You'll start seeing probably the beginning of October. You'll start seeing the abatement companies in there doing work within the building. You'll then, as October moves on, you'll start seeing windows coming out of the building and such. By the beginning of November, you'll start seeing demolition in full progress. And again, as we've stated before, by the end of the calendar year, we hope to have a clean site there and be ready for activity in the spring. We will be holding multiple public hearings. We're still looking for input from the town. The design is, we've all seen the renderings of what we hope the building looks like. That is not set in stone. We can have adjustments depending on community input, but we want to inform people, especially residents close by, as to demolition, how it's going to go down, what possible effects might be there. They're going to be willing to talk to neighbors, to inspect homes before the demolition to make sure we have a good guideline as to what the neighborhood homes are like in case they get any dust particles or whatever. Demolition in the November month should be a little better for residents in terms of the weather will be a little colder. People's windows should be shut for the most part, so the noise will be a little less. They looked at all the utilities. They looked at how they're going to make sure that we transfer utilities such as water or electricity to make sure the rink is fully able to work. They're looking at where they're going to be making that cut between the auditorium wall and the middle school and the gymnasium wall to make sure that's safe and secure, and the best way to do that. So there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Again, the meeting is tomorrow night at 5. We encourage you to attend if you wish. School department report. School department met last evening, actually here, and a lot of the talk stemmed around that it's incredibly crazy that it's starting again. It's September in a couple of weeks, and school start for the teachers and staff Monday, August 25th and 26th. They will be attending school. Wednesday, the 27th, will be the first day of class for the children. Thursday, the 28th, would be the next day of class. Friday will be off, and they will have the long weekend for Labor Day. They will come back and start in earnest on Tuesday, September 2nd. The other item that was discussed, which was pretty good news last night, is as we were going along in the budget process, especially with the schools, there was concern about potential loss of federal grants and such, and they were happy to report last night. And I applaud the superintendent for the amount of work she put into this budget, was unlike any other, with questions about override, passage or not, questions about federal funding. So there was a lot that Superintendent Howard took into account. She was very conservative in her budgeting, which is tremendous. Some good news over the last few days that federal grants really, at least for this year, you never know what's going to happen, but they've been pretty stable. They received about $1.1 million in money from federal grants. These are Title I grants, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and then a couple of smaller SPED-type grants. These are all federal grants, usually dealing with low income or special needs children, also dealing with just supporting ELL, English language learners, along with immigrant children and special needs of that. So the school committee was very happy with that, and again, we applaud Superintendent Howard for her understanding of this before the fact and being prepared for any potential scenario that came up, and in this situation, it was a good scenario. So that is the school committee report. We will go to policymaking. There is no update, correct, Denise?
No update.
And we will go to Tony and the town manager report, which has been distributed amongst the council. If you want to make a few comments, if there's a couple of questions on the report itself, please feel free.
The only thing I wasn't on there and added is the beach cleanup at Winthrop Beach this Saturday, I think 9 to 12. DCR is bringing some of the equipment. They're going to supply some water, for people who keep the heat. But it is, looking forward. There will be a waiver people need to sign. I've got copies here. I was going to give to Councilor DeRosa, but he wasn't here tonight. I'll get to that to him, so he has them for the weekend. But people just need to sign the waiver. But anybody who wants to help and participate, they'll be doing some trash cleanup and seaweed cleanup where they can. Anything that's part of the the ecosystem, they won't take out. But anything that's dried up and not part of the ecosystem, they'll let them take out. So looking forward to that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people who wanted to volunteer, so hopefully for a good turnout on that. So certainly open up some questions, and then once that's done, I'll do the water rate.
Okay. And I will ask just one question to start. I thought you did have an update on Bowden Street.
I'm finishing up that report. I will have a report on Bowden Street. I tracked down the company that took down the tree. We had the report finally come in about the tree that did note some age and disease, but as we know, Darren was talking earlier, Suzanne as well, there's disease with a lot of trees, but, and then the homeowner claims that he got permission from the DPW. Can't tell me who, didn't get it in writing, but, so I'm finalizing that, so I should have something.
So we should have something for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And questions, and just a quick, and I know you did talk about this in your report, but just a tip project, just to let people more understand about going back to school and possible impacts there.
Yep, they're working on getting that section done. They'll start stripping again. There is a chance that there'll be some, gravel there, when school starts. We talked about it, Steve, they kind of refocused. They went back to some sidewalks for a little bit. They had to get caught up. They had to move some fire hydrants back to, when they widened for the road, for the turnaround, so they can queue up to take the right to the schools. So that's, that's all part of it. But, they will be done by November, but, they won't have the stripping and all that done and completed by the time school starts, but it'll be shortly thereafter.
And there is one more, for the director, there's one more segment of stripping from the top of the hill down to...
They're hoping to do it in one final phase. That's subject to change. They may shorten it depending on quantities, because they have to be able to only open enough to be able to get paved in one night's worth of work. It's close to get the rest of it completed, and they're optimistic that they can, but they don't want to commit to that until they know a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Swope?
Yeah, Tony, you said that you've completed the contracts, 4 of the contracts, you just have the clerical one
Just
yet.
the clerical one left, yeah.
Is there a way we can take a look at those contracts?
Sure, I don't have them done yet. We start with an MOA, memorandum of understanding, MOU rather, with the union. So we highlight all the changes that we made, we sign that, we make sure we get the payroll up to date and the changes that have to happen with that. And then we have to incorporate those changes into the contract. I'm still working on that. Those contracts aren't finalized yet, and then we get the final signature on those.
Okay.
So I anticipate over the next couple of months that'll be wrapped up.
Okay.
And then what we'll do, we plan on putting them up on the website as well.
So are there any major changes, or you can't talk about it until it's signed?
Until it's signed, yeah. We have the MOU. Mostly it's the, the COLAs for all of them. We're, 2.5, 2.75, and 3 over the next 3 years. That's what we landed on the COLAs, the cost of living increases.
Okay. So I would like to see them when you get them done.
Sure.
So we can see them online.
Yep.
And I noticed that the overtime budget stayed the same from 25 to 26.
For what?
The overtime for police, is that true?
I thought it was a slight, right? I have to double check and not memorize.
I thought it was 450,000.
Because we've got, remember, we've finally fully staffed now. We lost a few officers over, we've got people on a list, on the
Right.
reserve list that we're gonna fill in. So for a long time before that, we weren't, so the overtime numbers were a little higher.
Well, I don't know, in 2024, it was 419,073.
Yep.
But in 2025 was 450, and you have it budgeted at the same for 2006. Okay. Can you tell me, because I see a lot of police, but not only Winthrop police, but other police like Chelsea and other police, working with the TIP project?
Those are details, those are separate and outside of that number.
Okay.
They paid separately by the contractor.
Okay, and so, how is that, if that's paid separately, do the people that are full-time, do they work on that contract during the day and then they change to a night?
They might go to a night shift or work the day. A lot of people work side jobs, but they're off. They use their time off to fill the details.
Okay, so we're not paying for that, the TIP project is. But they can change their time to night, in other words, or
They
that
ship it
schedules.
at the beginning of the year, so that's usually staggered. You know, you
Oh,
got
okay.
days, mids, and, eves, and then overnights.
Okay, so that's set by the police chief, I
Correct,
take it.
exactly. And they, based on seniority, they all bid those shifts at the beginning of the year, where they want to work and what they want to do. And then they have to have some patrolman, a sergeant, lieutenants, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, thank you.
Counselor Tassinari.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's good news about trying to do that in one more shot for the rest of that TIP project, to do the raising and the paving over. Question about that last section. Is there still a lot of utility work that needs to be done underneath that section of road? I know there was a lot that was already done as part of the,
The utility work is complete. Right now, they're focusing on curb, removing, resetting the curb, getting caught up in the sidewalks, which is why, they haven't started ripping into that next phase of asphalt yet.
so I understand that for the part that's already been, gotten the binding, the first layer of binding, but that last section that gets us out to that,
There's no utility work.
there's no utility work left to be done there either. That's great news. Thank you, Director. The other question was, total cost of that TIP project was about 11 million, 11.5?
with some of our monies, maybe, it was almost,
It was a $7 million project
Yeah, a little
for the state. There's been some change orders and some, things of that nature. We added the pedestrian crossing, and all the crosswalks, all that lighting. Our cost prior to that was probably in the vicinity of, I'd say, 4 to 5 million. So yeah, you're in the ballpark.
And that got us all that utility work that we needed to have done, and it got us the crosswalk,
Got us the
the new lights,
engineering,
the engineering.
easements, all that.
It's great work, thank you. It's a good way to leverage town dollars with state dollars. Then there was another question I had for you, Tony, about the tree, the Bowden Street tree. That report's not done yet, but is there any inkling if that was a public tree or a private tree?
the owner believed it was his tree. If you look at the shade tree law, it says, trees and then, trees that sit on adjacent land as well. So he clearly didn't know that, the Mass General Law, Chapter 87. I would hope the tree company would know, so I'm still waiting to get in contact with the owner, because they technically should have had something in writing from the town before they took it down, so.
And do we not require a permit to take down a tree?
Not on trees.
There's not a permit for trees in this town.
Is that something that the director or the tree warden or the town manager would
Take a look
ask
at it. I don't know,
the
yeah.
council to act
I've never worked in
on?
a town that had that, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. There might be
It doesn't,
towns that do that.
it doesn't have to be a high cost or anything like that, but at least if someone has to go and get a permit, then they'll have to be informed that this is a shade tree, whether it's a permit to take down a tree on private land or anything. It might be a $0 permit, but at least they're gonna know that you can take this down, and you can't take this down without going to the tree committee.
We can do that, and we can also, for anyone who's watching, we can do the education campaign, we can put more information out about the trees and the public shade trees. This gentleman had no idea, the person that I talked to, no idea that law even existed. And I think there's probably a lot of people in town that don't think that. We have people taking stuff down.
Yeah, it's my tree, I'll take it down, but
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah. So, we need to do a better job in educating people as well, so that's gotta be part of this. But we'll take a look at it.
Jim, the tree committee is working on wording for an ordinance regarding permits and fees. And we will have that wording for you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the MBTA. Have we gotten any correspondence on them from any of the things we've asked for, bus shelters? The most timely is the route.
We haven't yet, but we did have a meeting with, thank the Councilor Elf for setting up with Brian Kane. He's on the MBTA advisory board, kind of our new point of contact. So he's looking into some of those things. I've also reached out to the person that we spoke to before about the bus shelters, waiting to hear back. They were supposed to do a big launch. I'm not sure if that already happened or not, but, I don't think so. I just haven't heard much about it, so we're still putting pressure on about the bus shelters.
Okay, and then any word about the bus routes that changed as of June 15th?
They're
No
looking into
action?
that, but nothing yet, no, we haven't got any good information on that. I think they're going to a fall schedule now, soon.
Yeah.
Right, this is the summer schedule ending, now they're going to a fall schedule.
Which is also not wonderful.
Right,
for
exactly,
our
yeah.
residents.
So no, we haven't got any good answers back on that yet, but we're working on it.
In your opinion, would it be worth us sending an additional strongly worded letter?
I think if you draft one, I think it certainly couldn't hurt. Yeah.
Council Costa.
Yeah, let me point out the positives, thanks to Town Council President. Regarding the TIPS project, as always, in my precinct, by the way, of course, the schools come first. I'm very happy and thank you for the progression on that overall intersection there in McGee's Corner. I sat there today, and I actually saw the hand come up, and I said, oh my God, it really is a God.
Yep.
So, thank you, Mr. Caller and company, and of course there as well. The children come first, the schools come first, all that TIPS project. I know you're making the cut on the right as you're coming over the hill there. I get all of that. Let's make it safe for the children first and the traffic there. I totally understand that. But I just want to also address the concern of our businesses on that street. And I think you're probably aware what I'm going to speak about here. Their revenues are down as we speak, as it relates to the businesses there. They're impacted, so, and it's understandable, there's construction going on there. But I think some of the stanchions that are currently in front of, let's call the marketplace, you know, that curbing there, all it has to do is be set and lowered, get rid of those barriers. If you look at the amount of vehicles that are not parking there to patronize that institution in town, he, you know, hires children all over the town here. He contributes tremendously to our community. The revenues, as far as sales, go back to the town as well. And again, let me just clarify, the children come first, the schools come first, let's make that safe.
And public safety comes first.
Public
That's
safety.
why those stanchions are up there.
Amen, and I understand that. And if I look down the road, only because I did an analysis the past few days and the past couple of weeks as well, is that the curbing on the right side of that street as you're heading towards McGee's Corner from the old age housing there, is basically getting all set on that one side. And then around the McGee's Corner area, you have that curbing also set there. And then it sort of skips a little bit, and then there's curbing up towards the corner there. It seems like the business districts there seem to be last in this overall TIPS project as far as curbing. All we have to do is just cure that curbing to get the patrons in there to, you know, help these businesses out. Is there any plan to maybe expedite that after we've taken care of the,
Unfortunately, that's not an accurate statement, because the curbing, when it goes back in, will be at the same sidewalk height, and that's the issue. It's the step down because it's only binder right now, and there's an opening, small opening there where the binder will have to go in. I've already talked to Mark Wallace about it, and I've talked to Steve about it, and there's really nothing we can do right now. We are trying to work with the contractor to see if we can come up with another plan, but right now it's public safety. You don't want people getting out of their cars and hitting their car doors off the curb, which would happen, and also getting out and potentially breaking their ankle, you know, by taking a trip and fall hazard. So while they're annoying, and I get it, why Mark wants them gone, it's understandable, but for right now, they're there for public safety.
and I think my curiosity lies in the fact that they're only in front of the marketplace right now. And on the opposite side of that curbing there, that seems to be, it's a 7-11 height and walkway pathway. You need 7 inches for the curb line to be accessible.
That was one of the higher traffic routes, and the more the cars coming.
And my question, I think, is there any way we can get a 7-inch or 10-inch lift on that as far as to open up that curbing here so he's not losing patrons, or even up towards the Cumberland Farms area?
Like the manager explained, that curbing's gonna get set to the same height. That's your height. You're not lowering your sidewalk.
Yeah.
So the curbing's gonna be set to the height of your future sidewalk, which is where it is. That roadway is down, it's still got another 2 to 3 inches of asphalt going on top of it in the final coat. So even when that curb is reset and that sidewalk is done, that step down is still gonna remain. And it's a parking side of the street. The other side of the street, there's no parking.
Exactly.
Like the manager explained. If the cars pull up, they go to open their door, and you're gonna have a bunch of claims with, I just wiped my door out on the curb. I didn't realize that, you know, I couldn't open my door. And then the step down, so that, you know, until the street's fully asphalted, that height curb is gonna remain.
Okay, maybe my observation was incorrect. As I looked on the opposite side of the street, that incline, or should I say that elevation on the curb, is actually, looks to be substantially lower. So again, I'm just I'm just questioning that because of the constituents down there, the businesses have those concerns, and they are unfortunately losing revenue as a result. And is there any way of expediting that? I mean, how long are we looking at, Town Manager, as far as that, and those stanchions being in place, and the loss of revenue for those businesses down there? It's a big concern to them.
I understand, I mean, but it's the nature of the project, it's gonna be, the schedule is next spring or summer, you know, we'll finish up the final paving, so.
I'd like to say that's unacceptable in public here, so we can discuss that afterwards. I'd be glad to discuss that as well with the business owners down in that area.
Talked to Mark Wallace on several occasions.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that, just so I'm representing my constituents as a Precinct 1 councilor. Thank you very much, Town Council President and Town Manager as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Costi and Councilor DeMarco.
Thank you, Tony, for the report. I don't have any extra questions.
Councilor Alley.
Two quick things. Speaking of trees, is the final report for the tree that was taken down in Point Shirley on the website, has that been finalized yet?
The Bowden Street one, you talking about the Taft Ave, I think, is that the one?
Yeah.
Taft Ave, yeah.
Yeah, no, that one's gonna be, that was a, we think we've got that on camera, or whatever, we're finalizing that report, but I think that's gonna end up with a fine, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to get that wrapped up as well,
absolutely.
because
We're working on both.
I agree with Mr. Dowd's comments. We've got to get at this and make sure that people are seeing enforcement. And then the other thing is, Mark Sennett raised the issue of scooters, bikes. I know everyone's seeing it. One thing that would be helpful, not at today's meeting, but I understand that there are statewide rules about different classes of these motorized scooters, e-bikes, et cetera, who belongs on sidewalks, who can't go on sidewalks, who needs to have a license plate, whether helmet laws apply, don't apply. But any sort of laws or regulations that exist, I think we should figure out what those are first, and then let's try to figure out how to enforce it, as well as maybe just public service messages, and maybe something with the school system.
Right.
To make sure the kids understand they need to act like it.
Got it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like an old guy.
Pop up the water rate report. I still gotta do the water.
Yep.
So I'll start off the water rate report by, thanks to Karen Chavez for pointing it out to me today. When we sent off the bill to Softrite, the bill was supposed to be at 26.27, I believe, for last year, but to the benefit to the residents, it went out at 26.25. So the rounding error on Softrite, so the bills went out at 26.25 instead of 26.27 for the year. So instead of a 0.57 increase, it'll be 0.59. So I just wanted to preface that before we started the recap. And thank you, Karen, for pointing that out. We checked it on the bills and stuff like that, so she was all over the numbers for me. Delta on that, just so everybody's asked, I'm sure it'll be a question, about $9,200 is the difference between that. So, you know, a little less on retained earnings, but, you know, everybody got a little savings. Very minimal, but a little bit. So we invoiced $12,019,301 in FY25. We saw a slightly less than 7% increase in usage on last year, you know, which combined with our lien collection accounted for a water sewer revenue surplus of $125,850. And then we collected 94.5% of the amount billed. That is down a little bit, I think, you know, given the economy and some of the increased expenses and inflation and whatnot, it's a little harder to pay those bills. But, you know, we also are working on some issues that we have with some meters in some of the larger complexes and some overbilling that went on, so we're dealing with that as well. The next slide is the water rate. This was built, budget was built based on the FY, you know, the FY25 water rate that we thought was the 26.27. So the rate here shows the 0.57 increase, but that will be 0.59. You know, based on what we built the budget on, we had to leave that numbers the same. You know, 7% increase in personnel, 7 cents rather. 1% increase in the health insurance, 15 cents on the purchase services, 35 on the MWRA DEP assessments. Property insurance and other went down by 2 cents. And then just indirect costs at 1 cent, so that increased to the 0.57, which will go up to 0.59. Next slide. Yeah, so the increase this year will be 0.59, still 26.84, that doesn't change. The new combined water sewer rate for FY26, it's a 2.25 rather than 2.17 increase over last year's rate, and then the FY rate, 25 rate was 26.25. Next slide. This is where you can just see the impact, you know, family of 1, family of 2, family of 4, and we'll make sure this report gets up on the website tomorrow so people can take a look at it. I know these numbers are a little hard to read. You know, but you take your average family of 4, you know, if they use 60 gallons per day per person, you know, it's $69 over the whole year. 80 gallons per day, 92.12 per year, and then, this is the largest number, obviously, and then the 100 gallons per day, $115 for the whole year. Relatively small for the whole year for considering what was last year. And then last line. Sorry. Moving forward, we'll continue to use the water and sewer retained earnings to fund unanticipated capital projects in FY26. If we exceed the capital funds, including the FY26 budget, which we put in $220,000 this year. We'll continue to look at bonding opportunities to fund the FY26 capital projects, and we'll be back in front of the town council over the next few months for the water authorizations for the exercising the valves and doing other valve replacement works that we started last year, and we want to continue and do more of that this year. Like I said, the current balance on that is, on the water stabilization fund, is $1,094,938. And we continue to look for low or no interest loan opportunities offered by the MWRA and the state, similar to the SRF loans for the lead pipe replacement programs that fund our capital projects. So certainly open to any other questions, but considering last year, we went up, we're supposed to be $1, went up 98 cents. This year is a little less than that at 59 cents. So.
Now, thank you for the presentation. Our water loss has been down pretty drastically over the past, and thanks to Director Calla and some of that infrastructure work that we've been doing is paying off. Over the last dozen years or so, we've done about 9.5 miles of infrastructure, and which has helped that. And another thing that obviously is talked about a lot this time of year is the hydrants being open, which is part of the lost water, and it's more of a stir. It's not a fire issue, right? More of a stirring up the pot kind of a thing, especially with the hotter temperatures and making sure the quality of the water. But if you or the director would just like to address that a little bit.
I'll direct the council.
Absolutely. So in the warmer weather, there's chlorine in the distribution system that's natural, that's there for a purpose. In the warmer weather, and if water sits stagnant, the chlorine residuals drop off, right? It's just a chemistry. Less chlorine residuals makes the water supply become more susceptible to harmful bacteria, which we don't want. So seeing the hydrants flushing, we've shut them off since, but they flushed for several weeks just to move stagnant water, to keep water temperatures in the system up. It was just a precursor to what you'll see starting in September. We'll actually required to do our unidirectional flushing. So you'll see us go town-wide, opening hydrants, and moving that water. That's part of our DEP permit. That's a requirement. It's not something that we can say no to because we don't want to waste water. It's water quality, and that's first and foremost. That all gets accounted for in our unaccounted for water calculations because it's unbilled but not unaccounted for water. So it becomes estimated water use, just like fire protection and things of that nature. So you were right, unaccounted for water is way down at one time. Not all that long ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, we were up as high as 26%.
Yep.
We are down to 15%, which is,
that's
hats off to all of you that have continued to fund these infrastructure projects. There's a lot more to do, but you can see what that investment has done. The water that you see us flushing out of the hydrants is a drop in the bucket to what was being lost in leakage. So.
Thank you. Any other questions on the water rate presentation, Councilor Swope?
Thank you, Tony. Sorry, town manager. I had, this is a concern that is going to come up over and over again, but my concern is ADUs, and it's bigger topic than just this. But in terms of water, in terms of ADUs being built, I understand now that the HEOLC has changed the law again, so that you can build an ADU on your property, and so if we increase ADUs significantly, how does that affect the water? Because that means that we have all these units that then have to have right, water and sewer, are connected to them. And are they connected to the house that's the principal resident that's on there?
Homeowner's responsibility, it has to come off the house. You
Yeah.
can't have more than
You can't
one
do separate meter for
meter
that.
on a,
Okay. But that's,
It would be increased water and sewer usage, but it would be billed through the house in a single-family home. I mean, or the single-family home with an ADU or a two-family with an ADU.
so that means that we would have to, so, all right, so if we, let's say we had 100 ADUs, what would that do to our water sewer, I mean, what would that do to the system, the size of the pipes and anything else?
So I wanted to speak up earlier, maybe I should have, when you guys were all talking about capital and infrastructure. And Councilor Castaneri is pretty much dead on what he had said earlier. When we design and construct water projects and design and construct sewer projects, we're building these projects and designing these projects for more than double the capacity of what is existing there. So what we've already done, you know, in the course of at least my tenure here, the 20 years that I've been here and before the investments that you made, we have already, the stuff that's been done is more than adequate to double the capacity in those areas. The stuff that hasn't been done yet still needs to be done. It doesn't serve the community now. So, you know, the investment's got to continue, but I'm not concerned with any project that has been done in the last 20 years. You could put an ADU in every one of the houses in that neighborhood, and that system's going to take it just fine.
Fantastic, that's good to know. Thank you.
Councilor Castaneda.
Thank you, Council President. This is more of a question for Director Calla, but Manager, if you want to answer. You gave us a great report not that long ago about the coliform levels. Am I saying that right? That's the indicator organism?
That's correct.
Is that an annual report that you'll be bringing back to us again, or is that a semi-annual? Like, will there be an update?
We spoke about that because we were getting a lot of coliform hits.
Okay.
And again, it's all weather related. We've had some coliform hits this year, TC positives. But again, it's an indicator bacteria. It was always absent of E. coli. We do a DEP assessment every time, you know, we have a hit. The DEP requires us to investigate the sample site, and I'm happy to share those reports at the end of the year if that's something you want. I'm doing them anyways. I put a lot of time and effort into doing them, so I'm happy to share them.
Be good.
Thank you. And then just, and that's all connected to this flushing of the hydrants, correct?
That's why
that keeps the water moving so that those bacteria levels don't go up, so the chlorine levels stay at the correct
chlorine
level.
residual is high. The chlorine is what kills off the bacteria.
Yeah, that's helpful information for everybody at the table, and it's really helpful for the folks at home. Thank you, Director Calla.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. I just had a question, and this might be a little silly, but when we're flushing the hydrants, is there any way to use that water to water the trees or anything? Like, is that water usable? Like,
You want to grab a bucket and take it.
right, I mean, it would be an incredibly manual process, but
That's a good
can you
question.
like go fill a rain bucket? But like, is it,
Can we borrow a water truck?
Well, that's the thing, I mean, down the road, we gotta look at that and getting a water truck, maybe that's something we'll talk about long-term in the capital planning, but yeah, that might be something, because then we could pump.
I don't
that
mean to
water.
laugh, Councilor.
No, I know,
But it
that's-
would take.
it does feel like a silly
That's what
question,
you have
but
to do, right?
basically, it's like that water is usable.
I
Right.
can't do a manifold of hoses to every tree in the neighborhood. when we're
Right.
outside.
Right.
But it wouldn't damage a tree if you were to fill a bucket and water a tree.
Oh, no, the tree would love it.
Thank you.
Any other
Do it
questions
every
on
week.
the water presentation?
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Old business. The Ordinance Review Committee recommendations to the council. So we have a handful of recommendations. We went over a little bit at the last meeting. We're getting towards a deadline in terms of getting stuff on the ballot for this year. We do have the possibility to vote at our next meeting, but I think some of these we should be able to vote on tonight. The first motion is one that's been discussed the longest, and the motion that the town council vote to accept the ORC's recommendation to amend the town charter, section 2(1)A, term of office to read that there shall be a town council consisting of 6 at-large councilors, which shall exercise the legislative powers of the town, with 3 elected at each biannual election for 4-year staggered terms.
They shall be nominated and elected by and from the voters. The 7th member shall be the council president, chosen as provided in section 2.2, or take any other action relative thereto. That motion is still with Attorney Cipolletta. Gave us, which I shared last meeting, some information as to how that would progress. We would have to get a home rule charter. The council then, he said shall, but we're not sure if it's voted on, or if you'd have to create a 9-member charter commission. We also don't know if that charter commission can be, their duty, can it be streamlined to just include what we would like for, in this term, it would be how many councilors and their length of terms and who they would represent. Can it be streamlined to just that, or once you do potentially select a 9-member charter commission, do they have wider powers? When we did the charter commission back in 2003, the thought was we were looking at potentially hiring a town manager. And it ended up being changing the whole form of government, going from town meeting to a city form of government. So, we want to make sure that if at all possible, we can limit the scope of the charter commission. So we still have many questions on that Attorney Cipolletta is working on. They will come back to us. It is probably more than likely that would not see a ballot, because if we were to say yes to that, or if we just have to put that out, now, before September 10th, you would have to have potentially 20 people running for a charter commission that would have to get 150 signatures certified and blah, 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 blah. So I don't think it's going to happen for this November election anyway. It could potentially, as we figure out more and get to that level, it could be something that is on a special election in the spring, or it could be something that's on the next town election next fall. So there will be much more discussion on that, hopefully some more discussion on it at our next first meeting in September.
Yes. A question on that. Maybe this better for the Attorney Cipolletta, but would we be able to add it to an even year ballot?
Yes.
On a state election ballot, even though it's a...
Yes.
We'd be able to
We
add
would
that
potentially
anyways.
be able to, yes.
That'd be good.
Next motion is a little longer to read, and if I don't have a waiving of the reading, I will read it.
We'll make a motion.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So we'll just give a summation. This is the abandonment clause, and it's just, as written now, it's basically keeping the same abandonment clause that was written a couple of years ago, but it's adding that the counselor has the opportunity to present evidence, testimony regarding the absences. Basically, it's given due process to the counselor that might be affected by this. And I know Councilor Aiello had some questions on the abandonment clause that I believe was addressed, but if you want to discuss that.
I don't think it's been addressed yet. My recollection is that we had asked Attorney Cipolletta.
Oh, it hasn't been out to the council yet?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
okay.
sent it to the council president, but we had it forwarded.
That hasn't come yet, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we have it ready.
So that's-
Okay,
We'll get
so
it
I
done,
think
yeah.
that needs to be integrated into this language and maybe modify the language. But let's see what that.
If you want to, I mean, I thought it was sent out, but it's just sent out?
Just to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it was sent out.
Okay, was?
I thought it was
It's in
sent
the
out.
council packet,
Yeah.
but we didn't get it.
So we didn't have a chance to look it over. It is in your
I
packet.
didn't see it.
It's in the packet.
And that's something that, if you want to take the time, and we could come back to that the first meeting in September.
Sure,
Okay.
let's do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the agenda packet.
Okay. The next one is that the motion that the town council vote to accept the ORC recommendation to amend town charter section 2.2, council vice president to be read. Council president will nominate a vice president from the membership to serve for a 2-year term, subject to the confirmation of a majority vote of the council, who shall act as council president during the absence or disability of council president, and if a vacancy occurs, shall become council president for the remainder of the unexpired term. Powers of acting council council president shall be limited to only those powers of the office indispensably essential to the performance of the duties of the office during the period of such temporary absence or disability, and no others, and shall include acting as a member of the school committee only when the absence or disability continues for more than 30 days. So this was a motion that was brought up. I think it was unanimously passed by the ORC. I think the discussion mainly surfaced around making, they didn't have a problem with the thought. I think they wanted to make sure that the council still had input, and the discussion really stemmed around making sure that a majority of the councilors agree with the recommendation. Vice President Belcher is on the committee, if you have anything to add.
Sure, thank you. Council President is correct, this came up, it was unanimously passed by the ORC. What was important to me is that it's confirmed by a majority vote of the council. The other piece that's in addition to this is that it's a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term. I think that's a good move as well, and I think it will build a stronger leadership force for the council if it's someone the council president is tapping for the role and everybody buys into. So I think it's a good addition.
Councilor DeMarco.
I have no problem with the motion as is. There's just maybe a technicality about it. Typically speaking, when we choose our vice president, you'll ask for nominations, Mr. President, and like maybe I would put up Hannah or Suzanne would put up Pat, and I'm sorry, I'm not using your long councilor names. I'd be fumbling over the words, but is it possible to maybe amend the wording, or should we amend the wording to say something along the lines of any nominations delivered by the council to the town council president, so that way it's written that we all have input on that?
Well, I think that's the point. That's the purpose.
I know that's
of
the point. I'm just saying,
recommendation
should we
is to
change?
say, I think the OIC looked and said in many organizations, usually you'll have a president that will have a say, more of a say in who their vice president would be. And I think it brings that role more prominently. The council vice president years ago for the council was more of a ceremonial kind of, you'd say like a pass the hat kind of a thing. Nobody thought, there's a lot of things that happen that you write down and you never think it's going to happen, but eventually there was a resignation from the council president, which put into motion different things that then we realized, well, there's got to be more to this than that. So I think the thought was that the council president should have, as in most, if not all, other companies, a bigger say in who the vice president shall be. We also thought it should be a 2-year term to coincide with the president. And again, it gives the vice president better opportunities to gain more knowledge and such. So I think that was the whole point, to go back to your recommendations, basically to vote no to this.
Okay.
Councilor Aiello and then Councilor Costa.
Yeah, I have a similar question to Councilor DeMarco, which is the bulk of the stuff, which is identifying and clarifying the rules and timelines for vice presidential services when the vice president steps in, I think is fine. However, I do like the dynamic that we have today, which is nominations from the floor where we nominate each other, and then we can have a discussion about candidacies and have more of an open vote, as opposed to reacting to one nomination on the floor and really get somewhat handcuffed about an ability to think freely about who's interested and what the trade-offs may be. So if we could amend it somehow to keep that part of the process the same, I'd be supportive of it, but I'm not supportive of it with taking away the dynamic of the council writ large from electing a vice president where nominations are made from the body of the council. Part of my voice, yeah.
And you're more than welcome to make any, and Councilor DeMarco as well, you're more than welcome to make any motion you choose to, make any amendment you choose to. So if you want to make an amendment, the floor is open.
Do you want to do that?
Or you can make an
live,
amendment now, and then we can continue
Okay.
discussion.
Or did you want to wait for everybody else? It's up to you.
I just have a question, motion. It's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll go to Counselor Costigan.
Yeah, just to follow up, as it relates to Counselor Aiello. Yeah, I do like a more democratic process amongst the, somewhat of a round table amongst councilors to come to a conclusion of the next VP. But that being said, maybe I didn't read section 2.2D possibly, but in the event the the council president's nominee is not given that majority vote, what is the process?
That's my question.
The council president would pick another nominee for.
Okay, that's just to clarify. I know it sounds like a mundane question, but just to clarify my concerns, that's all.
And that was your question.
That was my question, Council President. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. I just want to comment on Councilor Aiello and Councilor DeMarco's comments. I think what this will do is ensure that the council president is putting up a nominee for vice president that they believe will be voted in by the majority of the council. I think it kind of forces a collaborative approach to it. I understand that when any councilor can make a nomination, it's obviously a more open playing field, so to speak, but I would hope that the leadership of the council would be in contact with the rest of the team to put forward someone that everybody's comfortable with. And the president also doesn't have any additional votes. They still have just one vote, even though they're the one making the nomination.
Councilor Swope.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this when we were talking about it at the ORC, and if I were, I do think that the council president, whoever it is, should be able to choose, or at least strongly recommend a person that they can work with, that they know that they can be partners with during their term in office. Because I can't, if the council were to recommend someone who got voted in but who could not work with a council president, it becomes a dysfunctional unit, I think, more often than not. So I would rather see the council president nominate someone, and hopefully that person would be, as Vice President Belcher mentioned, someone that they had already talked to the rest of the council about, but also could be a partner with them, and I think that makes for a stronger unit.
Councilor Aiello, if you'd like to make.
Yeah, I'd like to, so I'm going to propose, if you're looking at section 2-2C titled Town Council President, it says, in the proposed amendment, amend the current process. I would just change amend to retain the current process, et cetera, to the end of that sentence, where it ends with members, but then say under the proposed change, eliminate everything after the comma, and up to, from the membership, and then just say, the selected vice president shall serve a 2-year term, subject to the confirmation by the majority vote of the council.
So the amendment basically is to just
keep it the
amend it to
same.
say, you don't have to say keep it the same. Basically, you're just making an amendment that the role of the vice president is a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term.
That's the only change we would be making, yeah.
So
okay.
That would be your amendment.
Yeah.
Is there a second to the amendment for discussion?
For discussion?
Yeah, okay, there's a second for discussion. Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you, Council President. Just a quick question on the existing. So existing is 1 year nominated from the body of the council. Does the council president not get to nominate the vice president of the current? As a member of the council, you should be able to.
Council president hasn't in the past. I mean, I guess they could.
Okay. That's really my question, is like, if you have the power to do it, if the council president seat has the power to nominate now, I don't know if it changes much.
Well, the
except to
change is
limit
that
The council president
Is the only one who
in future
can
years is
nominate.
going to have the opportunity, as Councilor Swope said, to work more closely with somebody, again, with the majority of the council's vote. You know, again, in years past, I'm not saying now, but in years past, it's been more about whose turn it is and stuff like that, or who's been here the longest, or whatever. And, you know, and there have been years, obviously, where it's more based on qualifications and such, but I think this just gives it a process, my viewpoint, that's more in line with other, with other organizations. But yeah, I guess technically, they can make the nomination now just as anyone else.
So this
So
was
we're
kind
still
of
in the amendment now to just,
to remove that.
to basically remove that part and just keep
Yeah.
everything the same, except add a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term. So that's the motion, that's the amendment that we're discussing. Councilor Swope, did you have, no? You? No? Okay, so we're gonna vote, there's a motion and a second to basically amend the recommendation to just read, the only change to the vice president's role will be going from a 1-year term to a 2-year term. The nomination process would stay the same within, nominated by any counselor and approved by a majority. So this is a yes on the amendment would change this current recommendation from the ORC to just the role of the council vice president and the method of selection stays the same. The length of the term of a vice president shall be a 2-year term to coincide with the council president. So this is a motion, this is a vote on the amendment, and a roll call, please.
Council Aiello.
Yes?
Council DeMarco.
No.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Tassinari.
Yes.
Council Swope.
No.
Council Duras absent. Vice President Belcher.
No.
President Lettieri.
No. So the amendment has not passed, so now we're back to the text of the recommendation from the ORC. Is there any other discussion on the recommendation? And again, these will go to the town.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Seeing none, roll call vote on the motion.
Council Aiello.
Yes?
Councilor DeMarco.
Yes.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Tassinari.
Yes.
Council Swope.
Yes.
Council Duras absent. Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes, motion is passed. Motion that the town council vote to accept the ORC's recommendation to amend Town Charter Section 24A, compensation expenses, town council, to be read. Salary, the town council, the council president and members of the town council shall receive such salary for their service as may from time to time be set by ordinance. The town council review and vote on compensation adjustments every 2 years prior to June 30th. Any proposed increase must be placed on the ballot at the next scheduled biannual election for approval or rejection by the voters. The council president and the members of the council shall not be considered employees for purposes of Chapter 32B of the general laws. So this came out, is there a second? Okay, so it's on the table. This came out of the ORC. This has been something that's been discussed for a long period of time. When the charter, again, was written, going back in history, 2003, the original thought, a lot of the members had been selectmen in the past, and they just thought, select people, they just thought that it should continue as a volunteer position, that there shouldn't be any pay. And then there was discussion amongst the charter commissioners, and the thought was, we really should put in some sort of stipend, because then they're just going to add some sort of crazy salary. And so there was a stipend put in of $50 a week for a counselor, or $2,600 a year, and $100 a week for a council president, for $5,200 a year. So that was in 2003 and hasn't been changed since. And the mechanism that was put in the charter to change it
was a very convoluted process where basically if the council asked for a raise and it got voted on, it wouldn't be put in until, basically it's a 5-year process before the raise came up. So this is just changing how it could be done. It would still be voted on by the town, but it would come online much sooner than it had in the original charter. I'll ask Vice President Boucher to talk on this, since again, she was at the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's important to note that we're not talking about the amount of compensation. This is just the mechanism to update the compensation. As the president said, it was basically a 5-year process before, where you would vote and then it couldn't take effect until everybody who voted had either come off the council or been reelected onto the council. So it was very, very messy. So this just, I think it does a really nice job of ensuring that the residents decide what their elected officials are not worth, but what their stipend should be. And it does allow for these changes. As the president said, again, it's been 20 years, there's been no update. So this just ensures it's something that's looked at. The longer you go without updating things regularly, the bigger a jump it will be when you eventually do make that update. So I think that helps us plan financially on a more regular basis.
And just for clarification, if this was to go on the ballot, and if it did pass in November, potentially the council in June of 2027 could vote to give themselves whatever, $100 raise, whatever it is. And then that would go on the ballot at the end of November of 2027. So that's how it would read. But instead of coming into effect in 2032, it would come into effect that following year, 2028. So again, this isn't changing the salary in any way, shape, or form. It's just changing the mechanism as to how to change a salary potentially. Any discussion? Councilor Tessner?
Just a question, this came out of ORC with
8-0,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
8-0, yes.
Thank you.
Seeing,
We
Councilor Swope.
we didn't talk about this at ORC. It's funny, my thought about that is that the percentage, once we get, if we indeed did vote this in, that once we got this in, the percentage of increases shouldn't be more than the average increase that was given to any of the other employees in the town. So in other words, we put it in at whatever, and it would be, I think it would be better if we had some kind of ceiling on that, but that's not the vote here. The vote here is doing it.
Right.
But once
I think if you go along those lines, a 3% increase would be $1.50 more a week.
Right.
For the council. So, I don't necessarily agree with that, but,
No, but once-
it's, well, again, the voters are gonna say, if they try to raise their salary from $50 a week to $1,000 a week,
No,
it's obviously not gonna pass.
I'm just saying, this is not about, I would vote for the way it is. I'm just saying that once we got it in, it's a thought to think about whether, once we established it, what kind of, would we want to put a ceiling? That comes much later.
And that would be for a new
Another,
council.
I would be.
a new council to
I
vote.
understand that.
And I think the other important thing about this, and this is the last line where it says, the council president and members of the town council should not be considered employees, because once you're at a certain
You're-
threshold
Right.
for
It's in,
compensation, you could be considered an employee. And the one thing that we thought when we created the charter back in 2003, and I think we all still feel today, I don't want to speak for everybody, is that councilors should not be eligible for benefits.
That's
right?
exactly
So
right.
that's the big thing.
Right.
So, and this would keep that intact, that councilors are not eligible for benefits. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Council Aiello.
Yes.
Council DeMarco.
Yes.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Castanary.
Yes.
Council Swope.
yes,
Council DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes. Pass. Motion that the town council vote to accept the ORC's recommendation to amend town charter section 2.6, exercise of powers, quorum rules, to be read that special meetings of the town council shall be held on the call of the council president or on the call of any four members. Notice of meeting shall be at least 48 weekday hours in advance of the time set, which shall contain notice
of the subjects to be acted upon and location of the meeting. In the event that a meeting is considered to be an emergency meeting, notice of an emergency meeting shall be posted as soon as reasonably possible ahead of the emergency meeting. A copy of that said notice shall be posted on town bulletin board and on the Town of Winthrop webpage, except otherwise be authorized by law. All meetings of all multiple member bodies shall at all times be open to the public and the media. This is more of a bookkeeping thing, and I guess a coming of age type thing. When we wrote the charter back in 2003, what this was stating was if there was any special meeting, the council clerk had to hand deliver messages to each of the councilors. It wasn't like the 1800s, but I guess 2003, they didn't have a lot of email and stuff. But now this is given the authority of the power of the council clerk to just email a letter or post it on the bulletin board or post it on the town webpage to be able to transcribe that information in a more timely manner. So that's all this is doing. So we save some gas for the town, and the council clerk does not have to go from house to house. Any discussion on this? Roll call.
We need a second.
Second.
Oh, second by Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Council Aiello.
Yes.
Council DeMarco.
Yes.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Tassinari.
Yes.
Council Swope.
Yes.
Council DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes, motion passed. Motion that the town council vote to accept the ORC recommendation to amend town charter 97A, uniform procedures governing multiple member bodies, to be read that all multiple member bodies, whether elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, shall meet regularly at such times and places as they may be by their own rules prescribed, unless some other provisions is made by the ordinance or otherwise. Special meetings of any multiple member body shall be held on the call of the chair or by 1/3 of its members. Notice of meeting shall be at least 48 weekday hours in advance of the time set. Shall be contained notice of the subjects to be acted upon and the location of the meeting. In event that a meeting is considered an emergency meeting, notice of an emergency meeting shall be posted as soon as reasonably possible ahead of the emergency meeting. A copy of said notice shall be also posted on the town bulletin board and Town of Winthrop webpage, except as may otherwise be authorized by law. All meetings of multiple member bodies shall be at all times open to the public and the media. And this is the same thing, but for multiple member bodies. Yeah, all the committees. The second by Vice President Belcher. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Aiello.
Yes.
Council DeMarco.
Yes.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Tassinari.
Yes.
Council Swope.
Yes.
Council DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes, motion is passed. I do want to, again, take a second to thank the committee, the chair, Karen Chavez, the clerk, Carol Meach, Vice President Belcher, Caitlin Burrows, Timothy Callahan, Vinnie Crossman, Kurt Millar, Shannon Pujols, and our illustrious Denise Quist. So thank you for your work. It's not over yet. We still have ordinances to do, which will start in the fall, and those will take some time. And we still have 2 recommendations to go over. One of them will definitely be voted on at the next meeting in September regarding the abandonment, and the other one might take a little longer regarding the composition of the council. And the abandonment motion, which was Councilor Aiello's, is still continued with this motion, yes. New business, committee appointments. They have 2 committee appointments.
3. Michael, Susan, and Kath.
Motion that the town council approve the appointment made by Council President of Susan Garreau and Michael Bacon to the Cultural Council for a term ending June 30th, 2028. Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have a question
Yes.
about that. Is there a kind of an orientation for people that are new to these committees? Because I was thinking that it would be nice, I hate to assign Vice President Belcher to do anything else, but the thought that some of these people have great credentials, but they're kind of new to the town stuff, and it would be wonderful just to have an orientation for people that are new, that would like it, you know.
I think Vice President Belcher said she was going to have a barbecue for all new.
Fantastic.
But Councilor Vice President.
Thank you. There's actually a committee handbook that we approved a few years ago that came out of the Appointments, Committees, and Commissions Subcommittee. It's just a lot of the same word over and over. But it's pretty comprehensive, and I believe it's given to everyone when they're sworn in to their committees.
Yeah. There's not a
There's not a formal
verbal
orientation.
class or anything
Yeah,
like
it would
that
be,
as of now.
well, my recommendation is that they get the handbook, and if they have questions or they have an orientation, I think it would be helpful, actually, to people that are new.
Councilor Tessner.
Thank you, Council President. That is a very, very, very good suggestion from Councilor Swope. I think that not just new committee members, but existing committee members and new council members and existing, I think we could all benefit from like a workshop on parliamentarianism or Robert's Rules. I don't know what that kind of thing would cost. That would be.
We used to have, when we had off-site council, that was part of the service that they did. They used to perform a orientation for new councilors, and they would come in. And new councilors can attend, old councilors can attend, and they would have an orientation to go over Robert's Rules and such like that. So it is not a bad idea. Doesn't have anything to do with this appointment, I hope.
No.
So it is something that we could put on the agenda and talk about, so if you want to just jot that down,
Could we?
please, for the next agenda.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Congratulations. Motion that Town Council approve the appointment made by Council President of Kathy Garrow to the CDICR for a term ending June 30th, 2028. Motion by Council Tassinari, second by
Second.
Council Swope. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. New business memorial. So we know we lost Jerry DeFranzo, who was Winthrop claim to fame in the White Cane program, and we lost Jerry a little while back. And thank you to John Morgan for making this suggestion. And I had a meeting with John, and we discussed some potential things that we could do for Mr. DeFranzo in his memory. And one of the things that was brought up was Jerry lived at the Pillar House for years, and he was instrumental in getting us a crosswalk at Walden Street, going from Ingleside Park across to the basketball court. So we had talked about different options, and what I'd like to recommend is across the street from that crosswalk, right near the Pillar House, there's a little circular drive going in, and there's a parking lot there. So the thought is, what I'm going to present to the Memorials Committee is to have that called Jerry DeFranzo Way. That little, it's not a street, it's not a public street. It would be similar to what
Frankie did.
the schools did for Frankie Fabiano. So I'm going to make a motion that we pass on to the Memorials Committee to name that little turnaround the Jerry DeFranzo Way. And thanking Jerry for his years of service to this town and all he brought to it.
Second.
There's a motion seconded by Council Swope. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And thank you, John, for your help in this. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much, Council President. This is a great honor. That is, unfortunately, that we had to make. We lost a huge advocate for the blind and the hearing impaired and the disability, which will be extremely hard to replace. But at least his name will live on, and as long as I'm here, his legacy will live on.
Yes, it will, and thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
The second round of public comment. Okay.
Sorry. I'll keep it short. Celeste Rivera, you at Precinct 1. I want to advocate for trees. I'm looking at you, Tom. Mostly out of the conversation about, background on trees that were removed, whether people know how and if they should be removing trees, that kind of thing. and kind of advocating for an education process around trees, the need for them, and the whole removal process. And then the second reason, I was out pounding the pavement a few weeks ago on one of those 90-degree days on Washington Street and realized we are very sorely low on tree cover. I looked around, there are precious few trees capable of giving me any shade at all, so. But I'm wondering if there's a mechanism, whether in town mailings, emails, that kind of thing, where we can do inserts about information, whether it's about trees or other things, something that we could take advantage of, so it's not adding a whole lot.
Something in like a water
additional.
bill or something like that.
Yeah, right, I thought there was something like that, I wasn't sure if I was making it up.
Yep, you can.
And then the next thing, just about the impact to Winthrop Marketplace, other businesses in the area with this construction process. Spring is a very long time away. Is there anything we can do to kind of mitigate some of that? Maybe lending some resources, maybe getting them hooked up to Instacart, or, you know, if you're a big corporation, I know my bank in East Boston, they are doing construction, so they put a window on the back. Is there something we can do to kind of help them kind of be better positioned to kind of weather this impact for the long term? That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody online, Denise? Come on, somebody else. I want to see you going. You gotta go.
Really?
I'll throw it out there.
Yes.
As it pertains to.
Mark Senate, Precinct 2.
Mark Center Precinct 2, as it pertains to water and sewer and our rates, and the lost water. As everybody comes into town and they see that hydrant just flowing away, as a good faith gesture, could we get the MWRA to back that out of our unaccounted for water? Just so that, you know, we can tell the taxpayers and the ratepayers, it's not wasted, we're getting credit for it. You know, I mean, it's metered, it's unaccounted for. We can throw a meter on every single hydrant that you're using. You see it all the time with companies that do that. They meter their water that they're using out of our hydrants, so why don't we meter the water and see if MWRA will back that up as a good faith gesture? And then we get to tell the ratepayers, look, you didn't pay for it. Just
Thank you.
a thought.
Thank you. And I
If it's
can't
that small
make
amount that
comment to
Steve
that, but
says.
I will say that there's probably 52 other communities that might not want us to get that, so.
Well-
But we could definitely discuss more of that, but I don't want to get into back and forth, and that's my fault. See, you have to say something now.
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't, yeah, Erin Marcellus, Precinct 5. You want me to read all my notes that I took today? Just to go off Lee's comment from earlier, on the first public comment, please, y'all, come to our standout on Saturdays, because Saturday will be week 16. It was only supposed to be a one-time thing, and we're going into week 16. The support for the community is so important, and it does not matter. When we were on that bridge for those 2 hours, the thing that what matters is we're standing there for due process. Everything else that divides people right now doesn't come on the bridge with us. That's what we're standing there for. And so everybody is welcome, please. It's an experience. And then secondly, just thinking about like the issues around the MBTA and the changes in the schedules and the availability. Has anybody ever looked into bringing in some blue bikes? And maybe putting them down like near the ferry and other places, just thought, that's all.
Okay. Public relations, nomination papers for local elections. The local elections are November 4th, 2025, available at the town clerk's office. Papers can be taken out. You have to have your signature certified by September 10th? 16th. Farmers market, again, every Sunday, June through September, 9 to 1 at Ingleside Park. It's been amazing what they've done down there, and to go down there week in and week out and seeing more and more people going, vendors, even during the crazy hot days that we've had. The attendance has been amazing, I think. I mean, fortunate to live across the street, so I can see it every week and we go by. But I encourage people to go down and take a look at, you know, again, in the past, I've thought of a farmer's market as tomatoes and vegetables, but I mean, it's everything down there. Different vendors, local vendors, out-of-town vendors, seafood, coffee, trinkets, sweatshirts, such. It's really amazing coffee. So I encourage people to go down there, take a look and try that out. Next town council meeting is September 2nd. Normal schedule resumes. Committee openings for Board of License. We are one person down on the Board of License, and if you're interested, please contact myself or the town clerk. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Motion by Councilor Castaneri, second by Councilor Swope. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. What, meeting adjourned.